All right, so hello everyone and welcome. My name is Nicolas and I am a developer advocate working on Google Drive. So during this session, we're going to see what is possible with the Google Drive SDK and especially what some companies have accomplished by integrating with the SDK. So as you all probably know by now, Google Drive launched a couple months ago. And what's interesting is it launched with an SDK that doesn't only allow you to interact with files, like read and write files on Drive, but that also allows third-party application to deeply integrate with the Google Drive user interface. So, for instance, you can now, using third-party application, open files directly from the Google Drive UI, and these files that handle the file formats that you click on will appear in the Open With contextual menu. So, for example, here, on the screen, a user could right-click on this PNG file and choose to open it with Pixlr Editor, for instance, if the user has installed it. And the same way, we let user create files directly from Google Drive, from the Google Drive user interface. So inside the Create menu, alongside creating a new Google document, a new Google presentation, or a new Google spreadsheet, we'll also list the application that the user has installed that support creating new files. Again, for instance, Pixlr Editor. And we currently have a little bit more than 40 applications on the Chrome Web Store today that handle a wide variety of file formats. And I'm actually going to show you a few of these, explain you a few of these. So the first one, which I already mentioned quickly before, is Pixlr Editor. So Pixlr Editor is actually a really cool feature-complete online image editor. So it lets you open many file formats and even professional ones because it has features like layers or filters, basically lots of the features that you can find in a professional image editor on your desktop today is available on Pixlr. So using Pixlr and its Drive integration today, you can very quickly edit and create new images on your Drive. So within a few clicks, you can simply edit an image and save it back to Drive. Another interesting app is Balsamiq. Balsamiq is this mock-up editor, mocks editor. So whenever you're, for example, designing a website, a web application, or a desktop application, you can use Balsamiq to quickly mock the user interface. So if you're brainstorming or designing, you should really give Balsamiq mockup a try. And what's interesting is Balsamiq chose to create a Drive-only version of their app. So they have, for example, a desktop version of their app. They had already an online version of their app, and they made a standalone Drive-only version of their app. So that allowed them to ship that even faster. They didn't have to handle merging Google Drive users with their users and adding the Drive feature. People who use their Drive version of their app are always Google Drive users, and that made things a little bit easier for them during the implementation. And what's cool with their Drive integration now is that you can, for example, interact on the same file using their desktop app and their online app. So whenever you're, for example, on the plane, you could edit a mock-up using the desktop app. And whenever you're traveling or at a friend's house, you could open the same file that got synchronized to the Google Drive sync client using their online version of their app. And have you heard of HelloFax? Who have used HelloFax here in the room? It's a pretty popular app on Google Drive. It allows you to actually quickly fax documents online. And their Drive integration makes it actually even better and even faster. So actually, I'm going to fax a document right now. So let me switch to my Google Drive here. And I've displayed a bunch of the PDF that were in my Drive. And this is a simple PDF that just says hello that I want to fax. So all I have to do is right-click on it and choose Open With HelloFax. I installed HelloFax before on my Drive, and I get redirected to HelloFax. So HelloFax has actually these two features. It has an online signature management feature and an online faxing feature. What I want to do is fax the document, so one click here. And as you can see here, HelloFax is fetching the PDF version of my file. Here it got it, and all I have to do is copy-paste a phone number. So here is our Mountain View office fax. And I'm simply going to fax that to the Mountain View office. And here, the fax is being sent. So HelloFax has a lot of cool features, like it's going to let you know if the fax was successful with an email or if it failed for any reason. It's also, and I don't know if you've seen that, but I didn't have to sign in HelloFax. I didn't sign in HelloFax before the demo here. HelloFax automatically signed me in using our OpenID Connect endpoints. So at the same time as it was gathering, getting access to the Drive file, it also fetched my user information, knew who I was, and automatically signed me in my HelloFax account. And actually, even better, if you don't have a HelloFax account and you open HelloFax from Drive the first time, it's automatically going to create an account for you, again, using our OpenID Connect endpoints. So that makes a really, really good first-time user experience. And they actually even give you free HelloFax fax credits. So you can open any file from Drive using HelloFax and start faxing it right away. So here my fax was successful. Another cool feature is you can receive faxes from HelloFax. I think that's a paying feature, but you can get a number, and when people send you faxes, they're going to write that fax as a PDF file inside your Google Drive. So that's one of the really cool things with the Drive version of HelloFax. Let me switch back to the presentation. And so we have here with us today 3 people that worked really hard on integrating Google Drive with their application. And so they're going to show you a bit more of what you can do by integrating with HelloFax. And actually, they are going to go a little bit more deeper, show you a bit of code. So it's going to be nice. And they are going to showcase, they're going to use both versions of the SDK. So you'll see what was already possible with version 1 of the SDK, what is now possible with the newly launched, we launched that this morning, version 2 of the SDK. And they also showcase some mobile usage of the version 2 of our SDK. And the first person I'd like to invite on stage is, has been part of our version 1 Trusted Tester program. And actually, I think it's fair to say that they have the deepest version 1 integration and the most complete and deepest version 1 integration. So please welcome Till Vollmer, the CEO and founder of MindMeister. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Till Vollmer, and I'm the CEO and founder of MindMeister, which is an online collaboration platform, online mind mapping platform. In case you don't know what mind mapping is, a little short introduction to that. You see on the screen a mind map, which is actually a graphical form of representation of structured information. So on this mind map, for example, we see a meeting minute with participants, with agenda, with the goals of the meeting, and you structure all your thoughts around the meeting in this mind map. There are lots of use cases for mind mapping, for example, innovation management, project planning, even website planning, like how to structure my website with all the subpages, etc. And there are some personal usages of mind maps, like, for example, vacation planning, or even people plan their wedding with MindMeister. On the technical side, we are using Ruby on Rails with Apache in front and with MySQL in the background. We also have mobile clients. You see our Android version here. Of course, we have iPhone, iPad, and we will soon launch an Android tablet version. A few words to the MindMeister itself, or the company behind it is called MeisterLabs. It was established in 2006. We nearly needed 1 year to bring up the first version of MindMeister, and we had a soft beta launch in February 2007. And since then, we are now nearly at 1.5 million registered users. We are profitable since 2.5 years, and we are working with a freemium model, of course, which means we have a free version, and we have 3 paid editions to get revenue and to continue developing our product. We were very honored to be one of the first beta testers with Google Apps Marketplace, actually, a couple of years ago. So that was the first time we were in contact with Google, and also Google Chrome Web Store integration. And we are very pleased to be part of, to be part of the Google Drive beta test as well. And I have to say, really, that we get a lot of users through the source Google So it actually is a really great integration so far. And we are looking forward for version 2. When the beta test was conducted, we looked at the API and actually tried to figure out what can we do with the API, where are the best pinpoints to create a great experience for the users. And so we came up with a list of things that we could do. Of course, the obvious things that we already have seen is like create a new thing. Like for us, it's create a new mind map, edit existing mind maps, and there we also wanted to support various different formats. So there are a lot of mind mapping formats out there, like for example, Mind Manager format or Xmind or FreeMind. So we wanted to be also the editor for these formats. Then import mind maps to Drive, of course, from our platform, indexing that was available through the API. Export mind maps to Drive, adding attachments from Drive, and then, of course, MindMeister supports real-time collaboration, like, for example, Google Docs or Google Spreadsheets, and we wanted to even take this level to the platform, and I'll hope to show you that in a minute. And then we added, because we already were in a run, let's say, or in a sprint of implementing features, we thought, okay, let's do the whole thing, syncing mind maps and let's say do backup, etc. What kind of APIs did we use through the integration? Of course, because we create the user in the background as well, we needed to access the information. So we had OAuth 2, OpenID Connect. We also used user info profile and user info email to get the email address of the user and to get access to his first name, last name. To create the credentials on our side, and then we used, of course, the Drive file API to store and get information from Drive, or get the files from Drive. We also used the Contact API just to invite people to our mind maps. And last but not least, the Picker API to actually get content from Drive into our product. Okay, and then let's switch to the demonstration. Okay, of course, first of all, before you can use MindMeister in Drive, you need to install the application through the Chrome Web Store. And once this is done, you can actually go to Drive and create a mind map from there. So we just press the Create button, go to More, and then we should just say Mind Map. And in case the user doesn't exist at this point, it's created in the background. The user on our side, of course, is created in the background. Everything is set up, and the editor shows up, and we can start creating a mind map. So let's plan a vacation. And let's do a trip to New York, for example. And you can just outline your whole, I don't know, visit MoMA, for example, and continue to create a mind map your vacation. I'm not doing the whole thing here. And of course, if we switch back to the listing, you will see that we immediately see our mind map in Drive. So it's already synced in the background to Drive. And I can also open it from there again. But let's take another mind map that I created previously, MindMeister Google integration here, which is actually a summary of what I told you before in the slides. And you see all the information also visually is here with icons, with graphics, etc. And from here, I can do various things through Drive or with the help of Drive. For example, I can export this into various formats. And let's take, for example, a PowerPoint file, which is basically slides then. And I can just press a button here, export to Google Drive, and the mind map is converted into slides and then stored in the Google Drive folder. And if I go back here, we see here it is. And if I open it, it's basically a conversion of the mind map into slides that I can probably edit, pep up a little bit, and have a nice presentation out of the mind map. So back to the mind map, we can also import files that are in Google Drive, like for example images. So let's upload a file here from Drive. So I have prepared a little Android tablet screenshot from our upcoming release. Just take that and see it's here as an attachment, and we see a nice tablet version of MindMeister on the tablet. Yes, and of course, I can also invite people to do the real-time collaboration. So I already set up this mind map to have a collaborator. So I can do that through Drive as well. So I just go to the share button in Drive and invite someone else, which is my colleague here in the first row. And he just joined me, Mr. John Demo. And we can actually mind map together on the mind map, or let him do the work by adding new ideas to the product section, for example. So we, of course, have an iPad version and an iPhone version. So we support really all the real-time collaboration, and all the content is stored in Google Drive. Okay, and last but not least, if we go back to our product, MindMeister, then we have a couple of features here as well that are based on Drive. So if I go to the settings, for example, first of all, you see all the mind maps that are actually in sync or that are stored in Google Drive from here, and actually you can enable sync mode. So on our Tools tab, we have this Google Drive Sync, and this actually really syncs the mind maps back and forth. So it means that they are stored in Google Drive, but they're also stored in our product. Yeah, and we have a kind of table that that maps the IDs from MindMeister to the IDs of the Google document. Yeah. We also have an export feature here, for example, where you can export to Google Drive. So it packs all your MindMeister files into one zip file and stores it as a backup in Google Drive. Last but not least, last thing I want to show is you can also share from MindMeister. So you can actually share a mind map here, and we get through the Contacts API actually my friends from Google. Yeah, so I can hear the Google contacts, and I can share the mind map, and they get notification and can join me in the collaborative session. I think there's one thing that I forgot, which is basically the Picker API I showed already. Okay, that's it for the demo. Thanks for listening. Back to Nicolas.
Test. All right. Well, yeah. Thank you, Till. So I'd like to thank Till and his team for doing such a great work on their integration. I know they've worked really hard, and I actually really like this real-time collaboration feature they have. And now with their Drive integration, it really feels like you're using any other native Google document format, right? You can just share a mind map on your Drive with any other users. If both of them open it from Drive, they will be put in collaboration mode. So that's really cool, and that's the same kind of experience we have, in Google Documents or Google Spreadsheets or Google Presentation, and now it feels the same, for example, on MindMeister. So thanks again. Now, well, I've already unveiled who it was. The second company who is here with us today, so is Cloud9 IDE. They've been part of our Drive SDK version 2 Trusted Tester program, and so they have some really cool stuff to show you. So please welcome Rick Ahrens, the CTO and founder of Cloud9 IDE.
I think I have a few slides here. Wrong computer, this computer. So, what is Cloud9 IDE? We're building a complete IDE in the cloud. That means collaborative editing, running your code, Python, Ruby, PHP, and Node.js. Cloud9 is built on HTML5 and Node.js, so those are our native technologies. We have code completion for JavaScript, which is a fairly unique feature because JavaScript is weakly typed, so we have a lot of effort in code analysis going on. And all your code is running in your workspace in the cloud, so you don't have any differences anymore between workspaces, which is really great if you're trying to work instead of trying to synchronize environment variables. So you get your own little bit of compute and run for your code online, exactly geared towards development. Teams can avoid configuration issues, management issues. We have a full terminal now. We just released this today, so you can do Vim and all these kind of editing. And the workspace URL is a shareable URL. So one of the really cool features I just saw was that if you integrate from Drive, you can enable your collaboration features in a similar way. That's not an integration that we've done yet, but it looks very interesting. So as I said, yeah, we use Node as our backend technology, which is awesome and a challenge, because it means that we can scale very well, but we also have a full dynamic code base in the back. So that means you have to think about how you do things. So the Google Drive integration API, Cloud9 uses a virtual file system behind the IDE. And this virtual file system effectively abstracts all our file access. So that means that to make a very nice mapping to Google Drive, we effectively mapped our virtual file system in the back to the Google Drive API. So here you can see that you can save a JavaScript file from Cloud9 directly onto your Google Drive, which is of course very basic, but it is nonetheless very useful to be able to use a full IDE on your drive. Right now we've virtualized access, so that means that we're accessing the API for every file. We don't actually sync your entire drive contents to a server of ours, but that could definitely be a cool feature if you also want to run your Java source. But it will take extra time if you just want to edit it. So another thing is, of course, images and upload. I think here we're going to upload an image and show it in Drive. It's actually, yeah, oh, I think my video cut short. But I wanted to show you some code, some actual code that we use for this integration. So this is effectively our Drive integration code that we're using. This is Node.js. We talk to OAuth with a token, and then we effectively just talk against the HTTP APIs here, iteratively, to get our files and build up the virtual file system. So one of the optimizations that we ran into is that maybe I didn't look at the 2.0 APIs yet, but maybe one of the APIs can make it a lot easier to do batch processing of lists of files, because everything is stored by ID. You have to do a lot of requests to get ID. So there are definitely ways to get a more tight integration going. So if you do it really in a basic way, it might take too long to get all the information from Drive that you want to represent in your UI. So there's different ways to do it. I definitely can say that we still have some optimization here, but it's actually a pretty clean and simple API to talk to. And another thing I wanted to show was what was coming up for Cloud9, because it's a nice demo moment. And you can all see that this text editor starts to become a little bit chuggy when it scrolls. For that reason, we have used another cool feature that Google is enabling for many developers, and that is to use WebGL as a text viewer. So this is actually subpixel anti-aliased text now. So the browser is becoming an actual really cool platform with Drive and Chrome. As you can see, if you can do this kind of performance on actually a MacBook Air, which not necessarily the most overpowered video card. I think we can see where we're going in terms of responsiveness of the application. So soon with Google Drive and an application like Cloud9, the whole experience of the application will actually start improving desktop applications. You don't have to bother where your files are anymore, they're in the cloud. You don't have to actually get a lesser experience because we can now get a better experience on the web. And another really cool feature that's a little bit of a lab project, this will make it out into the release pretty quickly, but this one is a little bit more tricky. And that is that because you have now more screen space, you can actually start to do full code traces of all your code. So I don't think, it's two different screens. But as you can see, I just reloaded the server, and it dumped a full code trace of what is going on in the Node.js code here. This is a very simple Node example that is just loading files and doing WebSockets and that kind of stuff. But you can see that as soon as we get more and more lines of information that are useful to see what's going on, we might also want to get a more high-detailed view on the data. So if you can scroll through code tracings like this, then it's going to be pretty awesome. The only problem is, as soon as I turn on tracing, I effectively blow out a virtual NIC somewhere. So we're going to have to make sure that we stream the data to the client in a cloud-appropriate manner. But other than that, these are the two future features that I wanted to show. I think I also have a video of collaboration. It's going on. Let's see. Oh, did it fall out of my presentation somehow? Okay. All right. Well, then collaboration will have to wait online. You can try it out right now online. We'll release the Google Drive integration as soon as we think it's performance ready to go, but it's going to come out. But yeah, you can try Cloud9 online right now. We had a big launch today, so I'm a little bit tired actually after working all night. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. We have real-time collaboration on code, your own terminal, and the cloud's going to be awesome. Thanks, Google.
All right, thank you, Rick. What I actually really like about Cloud9 integrating with Drive is that you can use Cloud9 to edit your code, your Java files, for example, but you'll be able to use other applications, for example, Pixel Editor, to create the image assets of your project, right? If you're creating a website or a web app, or even Gunter, to schedule the development of your website, and any other applications you could think of that is integrated with Google Drive, and keep all these files inside the same Drive folder. So that's what's going to be really cool, is all this interaction between all these apps, and Cloud9, thanks for integrating. I was really waiting for this, actually, personally. I think it's an awesome thing, what you just did. And, well, the third company who is here with us today is actually pretty known to most Android users in the room, since they were developing the official gallery, the official image gallery that was shipped with most Android phones. And they're now extending their horizon, and I've prepared some really cool stuff to show you using the version 2 of our SDK. So please welcome Austin Shoemaker, the CTO and founder of CoolIris.
Thanks. So quick introduction to CoolIris. So we're a Palo Alto-based company of 14. Two things that we're mostly known for. One is the CoolIris 3D wall. This is a browser plugin that's seen about 45 million installs on desktop browsers. And also, as Nicolas mentioned, we developed the Android Gallery app that shipped with Nexus phones back in the day, and even through today. And what we're now focused on is enabling a better, more personally relevant, more immersive experience to discover media on mobile and web platforms. And so we think that we can really bring together your personal cloud with the social networking space and create a much more intertwined experience. And we'll show you some of that today. So when we were deciding how to integrate with Google Drive, we had 4 goals for this demo. The first is to build a visual timeline of all of your media that's in Drive. The second is to enable you to search by name or text in the images. So one really cool thing that Drive does is indexes your images for text using OCR, and also it recognizes landmarks and images and indexes those as text as well. It's super cool. And the third is instant upload from camera directly to Drive. And finally, the app is enabled to update in real time as things change in the Drive. And then after the demo, I'll explain how we built all these things. So this is our tablet app here. So I can just jump into Google Drive. This shows me all of the media that's in my Drive, so I can browse through it in this timeline. I can select any photo to view it in high resolution, so I don't have to navigate in and out of folders and go forward and back in my browser. And in addition to just browsing content, I can search. So the first thing I'll search for is flower. So the cool thing is that these are not actually called flower. It's recognizing that there are flowers in these pictures. This is all Google's demo, so we get credit for this, but this is freaking cool, right? So if it can recognize objects, another thing it can recognize actually is landmarks. So if I search for Taj Mahal, it will go through and find all of the images that actually contain the Taj Mahal. And one really cool thing, we just dumped a bunch of photos from our India trip on here, and this photo, it recognized the Taj Mahal behind a bunch of my teammates. So this technology is just amazing, and we're able to leverage it automatically by just doing a query. And finally, I'll do a search for a place. So I can look for Germany, and we found this almost by coincidence. It's actually finding landmarks in the images. It knows they're in Germany, and then it's showing them in the app. So these are all pictures of places in Germany. So it's really powerful and automatic. So that's an example of browsing and searching media on my Drive using the V2 API. So the next thing I'd like to show you is how this integrates with sharing in Google Drive. So I'll switch over here. So here I have 2 different Google Drive accounts logged in. I have this folder of images from Barcelona, and I'd like to share that to the account that's signed in over here. So I can just go to the standard Google Drive sharing API, and then add the demo account. And now that that's been shared, I believe those photos are new. I think so. Yeah, so you can see that the photos from this folder have been shared into my primary feed. So the next thing I'd like to show is actually camera integration. So we've built a very simple camera app. And I can take pictures. And that's uploading now, and just finished uploading. So now it appears in the Drive pretty instantly. So I'll take another couple pictures over here. And then as those upload, those will stream through the Drive, and then we get changes from the API, and they'll appear in the tablet screen. So those are the photos that I just took. And one really cool thing you can do with this integration, because we use Google APIs to do single sign-on with our account, in our app you can share photos to private conversations. So here I can select one of these photos I just took and actually say I want to share these photos into one of my conversations. So I have this conversation going on with people back at the office for Google I/O. So I can just tap here, and it drops my photos into the conversation. And now I can go out and view that conversation here, and here are all the photos that I just shared. So all of these files came from my camera through Google Drive into our backend service and to the users that were in that group. So really easy to integrate between the 2 services. And that is what I wanted to demo. So now I'll get into how did we build this, and a couple things that we learned while doing it that maybe will be helpful for those of you who are planning on doing some integrations. So things that we use, the Objective-C client library is in alpha now, so you can get that. That will handle OAuth authentication, authorization, and then provides a wrapper around the API that makes it a bit easier to use. So we use OpenID Connect with OAuth 2, so that gives us the user's email address and profile, very easy. We request the Drive scope. So there are different scopes that you can request to authorize to different things in Google Drive. The Drive scope gives you access to all the user's files. This lets you build something that accesses everything. The Drive.file scope gives you access to files that are created or opened by the app. But since we wanted to let you access everything, we request this scope. And we're using APIs from the V2 release of the API. So for browsing and searching images, this is our recipe. So we request the files list, and you can specify a query. One cool thing about Google Drive queries is they're structured. So you can actually give it a conjunction of search terms. So here, what we do is we request from the full text index, something that contains what the user typed, so like sunset. We request only images, and we request things that haven't been trashed. And then when this response comes back, you get a list of file objects, and it includes a next link that you can use to paginate through. So really easy to get a paginatable list of results for a specific query. And a couple of things to note. You can go and make your requests way faster if you do these things, and it's documented on the API, but I just wanted to quickly point it out. Partial responses. So there's a ton of metadata that gets returned with every file. So if you say which attributes you care about, it can return a partial response, which is much more compact, and it loads a lot faster. You can reduce the page size. So if you say max results and set it to something like 20, the page sizes will be smaller, and then you can page more frequently and lower your initial load time. Enabling gzip responses is easy, and it makes responses come back faster, and there are more tips on the API website, which is really cool. This is the next thing that we did. So you saw the real-time updating. So there's not yet a push API, but we're able to implement efficient change polling by synchronizing from the change list that's built into the API. So this is basically the best way to load a collection and then bring it up to date. So about basically tells you about the status of the drive. So all of the information that you need to know. The most interesting one for this is largest change ID. So every update to drive increments the change ID for the drive. And that gives you a number you can use to poll for changes. So you first get the largest change ID, which is then going to be a lower bound for the changes in any subsequent request. So when you get files, then any changes that occur after that will be since the largest change ID that you got in step 1. So after you start paging through files, you can start to actually pull changes at whatever rate you want, or when people hit refresh, and you pass start change ID with the one greater than the largest change ID that you got before. And this way you can, instead of requerying and pulling the entire list of results back, you can get just what's changed. And so if you say include deleted equals true, it'll give you tombstones, which you can use to remove stuff that has been removed from the drive, from your local cache. So if you use the ID of the file, it's really easy to do correspondence. You can see, okay, here's a changed file. This is the local cache I have. I can either update it or remove it if the deleted flag is set to true. And then it returns a new largest change ID, which you can use in your next request. So this is the recipe for that. It's pretty quick to implement and very fast. And there are rumors that a push channel will come in the future, and then we will be able to avoid the evil of polling. But in the meantime, that's how you do it. And then for uploading, there are 3 ways you can upload to Drive. So for our camera app, we looked at these possibilities. Media is the simplest one, though it's limited to 2 megabytes and you can't add metadata. So we picked multi-part. It's a simple HTTP request, multi-part MIME document. The first part is metadata, so you can specify the title and any other information you want. And then the other part is the binary data. So we use that. There's also a resumable upload type, which is useful if you have a large upload and you want to be able to continue from where you left off if you get interrupted. So that's great for large uploads on unreliable networks. So using the API has been a really great experience. And I think that the search powered by OCR and image recognition is really, really useful and awesome. And it's great to get that for free. And looking forward to, push notifications will be great. Getting more metadata around files, like image metadata, EXIF, and actually getting information from the recognizer on my wish list. Though there's a lot we can work with now, and it's very exciting to be able to build experiences around this product. So that is all I have today. Thank you for your time.
All right, Austin. Thank you, Austin. It's actually a really cool showcase of the OCR and image recognition that is built in Google Drive and now available to you through the API. So everyone, there is still a lot of places, a lot of space left for you to build cool Drive apps. For example, as far as I know, there is no application that handle the following file formats that are listed here. Personally, I'd really like to see an animated GIF editor. That'd be pretty cool. But most generally, I think most apps could make a good use of integrating with a user-managed storage, such as Google Drive. And we really, really need you guys to build cool and useful Drive apps that will make Google Drive a really interesting online storage solution for our users. That's going to be one of the big, big selling points for Google Drive is your apps, actually. So, please, guys, build Drive apps. And that's it, actually. Thank you very much for coming. And of course, I'd like to thank again Till, Rick, and Austin for all the work they've done. And we'll be happy to take questions, all of us. So guys, if you can come on stage. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to walk close to the microphones in the room. They're all fleeing. All right, cool. We have one question here.
Yeah, about that Objective-C client API. Is it something you built yourself, or is it an open source?
Sorry, could you repeat? I didn't get the beginning.
The iPad app with the Objective-C client API, is it an open source client?
The Objective-C client library, it's open source.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I think we released it like this week or like a few days ago. It's built by Google and it's available. It was already available for other APIs we had, and we just released a Google Drive version of it. So it allows you to easily do things like authorization and authentication using OS 2. That's all built in for you, and then all the useful Drive API access. We make that really easy as well. So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, okay, in front.
Yes. Does Cloud9 support regular Java?
Well,
I didn't see it on the list.
We've just released the fact that you have your own workspace where you can run Java and C and anything you want. We actually have a Java debug integration that is very far along. But we're just trying to figure out how to actually deliver this at cloud scale, because it requires a lot more server-side processing than what we're used to. With the new VM support, you can run it, and when we get the right data streams wired up, you can also debug it.
Thank you. I'll also be using MindMeld. I've been using Dia to do the exact same thing for years, so that looks really cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, this is kind of a more general question for just Drive in general. So I know you guys have Picasa and Google Plus Photos that you guys store photos and videos, but that's kind of separate from Drive. Is there any plans to integrate that? Because right now there's a cool video editor application that uses Drive, but you can't access any of the videos or photos.
Yeah. So your question is about a possible Picasa and YouTube merge with Google Drive.
Or just even videos from Picasa, yeah.
Yeah, so actually, we have the program manager from Drive right there. You can probably reply to this question in a more appropriate way than I can. All right. Can you share the answer with us for the video on the microphone? Or? Okay.
Yeah, so nothing too specific, but yeah, these are definitely things we're thinking about doing, because we'd love to bring the power of Drive apps to all this different content, but still very early in that process.
All right, thank you very much. Next question?
I'm working on an app that asks the user to upload images to then be used later to be displayed on the web on behalf of that user. And in the past, I've worked with Picasa Web to do that, where they'll publish their images to Picasa Web, and then that will get pulled into the app. Should I continue to use Picasa Web for that, or should I switch that over to Google Drive?
Wait, could you Repeat again your question, especially at the beginning.
So I have,
it's just that we get bad feedback from here, but
sure.
Yeah.
So I have an app that allows the user to upload images that they would then later use to share with other people. Should I continue to use Picasso Web for that, or should I switch that over to use Google Drive?
That's a good question. I'd say, I say Google Drive is, so Picasa is really nice to share your image publicly. Google Drive is really powerful to share your images only to a selected set of people. And you get nice integration like what you've seen with Pixlr Editor, where you can, if you share your image with someone in Google Drive, these people will be able to edit it or open it with Pixlr, for example. That's something you don't get right now on Picasa. The Picasa is a little bit better for sharing the image just publicly. People can see your albums and stuff like this. So for now, it's up to you to make that choice. And hopefully we can work on some better Picasa and Google Drive integration in the future and provide an even better experience. The better of both. So thank you.
My question is about the how granular is the scope limitation on applications that use Google Drive? So in an example that was shown, you have a scope for your entire Google Drive. Can you limit by, let's say, a file type, like only images, for example?
So not right now. Right now, the only scopes that are available are the full access scope. So for example, the one I think you guys are using at Cooliris and you guys are using at Cloud9. And for example, MindMeister here is using the other kind of types of scope, which is the per file scope. And here, you have to actually use the Google Drive UI to open files, and only the file that has been opened through the Drive UI or through the picker. There's also a little JavaScript widget which you can integrate into your website, into your web app. And only the files that the user has manually selected to open through our UI will be whitelisted for you to access through the API. So this is the per file, scope. Only access to the files that the user has chosen to open. But we're working on more scopes as well. That's actually a really good idea. For example, allowing an app only to access images, right? Or allowing an app to only access files that are in a specific folder, for example. That would be, that's pretty good feature request. And definitely some things that we're considering, which might get added in the future. So yeah, thank you. Yes?
Yeah. So just interested in the Google Drive offline experience. And so if I'm collaborating with somebody else and I go jump on a plane and then they're changing the documents, I'm just wondering, with each application, what I could experience. In other words, is it sort of like GitHub-like replication? Is it like paragraph-level replication? Is it document-level replication when I sync back up?
So you're talking when you're using specifically the sync clients, right? And all the files get synced to your hard disk. So actually, if you modify them with anything and you come back online, this file will detect the changes, and when you get your connection back, we'll start syncing them back to Google Drive. It's currently how it works. So as soon as you get back online, the sync client will start sending the changed files to Google Drive, back to Google Drive. Does that answer your question, sir?
Not quite, because I'm interested in federated databases, whether I can merge, at what level I'm sort of able to merge. Is it at the document level? So if
for example,
if
two person change the same file and in a different way and want to merge that back, right? So currently, actually, I don't really know how that works. I think it's probably the latest that's going to win. So the latest edited one, the one with the latest date that we're going to keep. We don't currently merge, as far as I know, the content of the file themselves. Though we're working on some stuff in that area, especially going to be available in the API, but I can't tell you more at that point. Okay. So that will be useful in that area. But
okay, thanks very much. It's a good answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, related question. On the Cloud9 app that you were showing earlier, it looked like you could have multiple people coordinating on the same workspace. Is there any synchronization going on through your Drive API, or is that all out of band?
Well, we were just accessing effectively the API like a virtual file system. So another way to do it is to sync to your local drive, which I think is actually a really good idea if you want to run code. Yep. The way to think of the collaborative workspace is that it's really a single workspace. So you're working together. It's not a synchronization thing like Git or anything. You're working together on the same files, or you're working on your own workspace, and then you use Git to sync source. Right? It's two different ways of collaboration.
Right, but if you have two people, in the virtual file system case, in prior systems that do things like that, if you have multiple users on the virtual file system at the same time, and this is a connectionless kind of environment on the web, what happens if the connection drops for a little bit? So
well, we have a collaboration algorithm that deals with that. So it's like OT, but different. It's a different algorithm that's behind the actual text syncing. It's actually really interesting. We can talk about that, but that's that's more of a you're collaboratively working on the document, and if something dies and you go offline and you close your browser, then your edit stuff in that browser will be gone unless you have been online, right? I mean, it's ethereal, so you do need to make sure that you save your file, or that that one person takes sort of the authority on the file. It will autosave. But it doesn't take the responsibility away that you're actually writing code. Right.
Yeah, I think I'll have to take it offline with you.
Yeah. So it works for the real case. Yeah. But you can always find an edge case like, I went offline and then I flew there and then I wrote some code and then I flipped my computer and now I have two desync things. Well, you could also just copy some code over, right? You don't have to implement Git to have use cases that are really far out solved.
Right, well that's why recent file systems usually don't do multiple users mapping the same file for write at the same time.
Yeah, so I think we need to separate those use cases pretty clearly so you can have two different ways of dealing with synchronization.
Thank you.
Hi, can I use offline files on a Chromebook, or can I view, say, pictures through Cool Iris plugin on a Chromebook if they're offline?
So how would the user access Google Drive if they're offline in Cool Iris?
On their Chromebook, yep.
Well, right now, this is an online demo, so every time you do something, it makes an API request. So if we wanted to, we could synchronize the image metadata and thumbnails to the local device and let you browse through it, and then use the sync API, the Changes API, to sync and bring it up to date. So we could do an incremental update when you come online. So we haven't built that, but it would be easy to build using the API.
And the second question was, for the scope in the drive list, it's limited to the files you've registered, is that correct? Or you can see other files that you've registered?
Sorry, can you again say the beginning of your question?
Yeah, for the Google Drive list API.
Yes.
If I've registered my plugin with, say, one particular file type, can I see, is the scope limited to only seeing that particular file type, or can I see other file types? So for example, let's say I've registered JPEG, can I see PDFs as well? Yeah,
so if you're listing files using the API, so there is actually, I think you guys are doing that, right? You're filtering on only images. So that's, you're probably using the search query parameter to filter?
So we use files list, and in the query parameter, you can say MIME type equals, and then specify the MIME type that you want to filter by. In terms of access control, the drive scope gives you access to all files. The drive.file scope gives you access only to files opened or created by the Google Drive API, as Nicolas said. So you can filter using the API, but there's no way to get permission to a single file type via an OAuth scope.
Yes. Not just scope, but when you search, specifically you can search and list files of only a certain MIME types, which you can list. And you can list multiple file types. Sorry, MIME types, right? Yeah. Another question?
Last question, maybe. Cloud9 is great. Use it for Node.js development. Thank you.
Cool.
Is there any chance that you will actually build in the synchronization to Google Drive? It would be a really nice and quick way to get a local instance of my Node.js app running as a snapshot or a working directory instead of using Git.
Yeah, totally. That's I really like the idea of synchronizing the Google Drive or part of a subdirectory of Google Drive, preferably not the whole thing, to one of our cloud workspaces. I think that's a really cool way to do it. We do have to put some fences up, as I said, about the use cases, because DVCS doesn't exist for no reason, and so you need to make sure that if you collaborate with different people in different, let's say, different time zones. You can use DVCS because you're not pair programming. And when you're actively, on Skype or on a new fancy HTML5 audio link, which we'll hopefully have soon, you can use Cloud9 to pair program and to do that. So the gradient between this asynchronous collaboration and the synchronous collaboration will fill in over time with different types of, code review, asynchronous integration with issues. There's a whole gradient in between, but that'll take time. All right, thank you.
All right. All right, if this is it, thank you very much again, everyone, for staying and for attending. And thank you guys, for implementing Drive on your product.